Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Have Your Say video, and this one is for Drag Race Season 16 Episode 9. Also, sorry that this video is coming out a little bit later than usual, but I've had some other things going on this week, which is why this video is a bit late. So today we're going to be recapping the episode, I'll be going through the results of the Have Your Say poll, and we'll also be talking about a little bit of unrelated drama to do with Elliott with 2 T's calling out her castmates. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Okay, so let's start by recapping this week's episode. The queens come back into the workroom after Tsunami's elimination last week, and all the queens seem to be very sad, particularly Morphine, who was the one who was in the bottom 2 and had to lip sync against Tsunami. We also saw that Plain Jane got upset at Tsunami's elimination, which was perhaps a little bit unexpected because Plain hasn't really showed that kind of emotion so far in the season, which I thought was interesting. The queens also congratulated Plain for winning Snatch Game, however there seemed to be several queens who felt that Sapphira should have won the Snatch Game instead of Plain. There was also a slightly shady moment when Dawn told Mhi'ya that everyone was kind of gooped and gagged that Mhi'ya was not in the bottom 2 last week, and the other queens seemed to agree. And it's interesting to see this because this is really the only time so far that we've ever seen Mhi'ya fall in the bottom or struggle in this competition. Let me know in the comments if you think Mhi'ya should have been in the bottom 2 last week, and if she had been in the bottom, do you think she would have beaten either Tsunami or Morphine in a lip sync? Okay, so the next day the queens come back into the workroom and they have to do a mini challenge, which is when the queens need to do the funniest spit take, where they drink some water and then spit it out when RuPaul tells them something funny. So it's kind of like a mini acting challenge or comedy challenge. I think it was quite a fun mini challenge, although I guess it is a bit gross when you actually think about the fact that the queens are spitting everywhere, but I did enjoy it because it's something a bit different. Mhi'ya was announced as the winner, and although I do think her spit take was funny, I think personally I preferred Sapphira's spit take because I felt like her character was a bit more realised. But Mhi'ya winning does make a great storyline though, because it's her redemption from the Snatch Game last week. So Ru then announces that the main challenge for this week is the design challenge, where the queens have to create a neo-gothic look using the materials provided. And one of the queens who doesn't seem to be that excited for this challenge is Mhi'ya, who struggled in the last 2 design challenges and doesn't seem happy that there is a 3rd design challenge. And this raises an interesting point that they did mention at Roscoe's this week, and I'll put a link to my recap in the description. And they were discussing whether the show caters the challenges to suit the contestants' strengths. Because on this season we have had several queens such as Q, Mhi'ya, Sapphira and Dawn, who are all great designers, and we've had 3 design challenges, which is more than most seasons typically have. And let me know in the comments what you think about this and whether they do cater the challenges in a season to meet the strengths of the queens. So the queens get to work on their outfits, and one of the major topics that came up in this episode is that Mhi'ya got a lot of help, seemingly, from Sapphira when making her outfit. And I'm not sure if it's just the editing, but it did appear that at times Sapphira was actually doing quite a lot of the work. They also discussed this topic at Roscoe's, and I think Tsunami made a great point, and she said that ultimately it is Sapphira's choice whether she wants to help other people, but it does come at a cost because it means that Sapphira has less time for her own outfit. Personally, I think it's okay to ask for help, and ultimately it is up to the queens as to whether they help each other out. But I can see why the other queens were a bit annoyed about it, because at this point in the competition there aren't as many queens, so if you're not in the top, you're more likely to be in the bottom. And at Roscoe's, they also said that Mhi'ya didn't seem very eager to help Sapphira, and also seemed very confident the next day in the workroom. And I do think this was very obvious foreshadowing for later in the episode. We do also have to remember that this is a TV show at the end of the day, and they're trying to create an entertaining narrative, so there probably were some liberties taken with the editing to create this storyline because it's entertaining. But there is also of course some truth to it as well. But let me know in the comments what you think about this. Okay, so let's move on to the runway for this week. As usual, I'm not going to give my critiques on the fashion because it's just not my thing, but I will say what each contestant gave as their runway commentary to describe their look, and I'll also say which outfit is my favourite of the outfits on the runway. So first up we had Plain Jane, who said this is a slightly darker side of her style, and she said it was a bit Gaultier, Chanel and Versace, with the details and the cascading ribbons and hardware, and she also said that it was giving a little dominatrix, goth and rock and roll. Next we had Mhi'ya Iman LePage, who said that she had spiders crawling up her outfit, and she also had a crow on each shoulder telling her to walk the runway. She also has a 40-inch wig giving Morticia Addams and Goth, and then at the back it's giving Nude Illusion. Then we had Dawn, who said that the elf ears are back, which is authentic Dawn, and her outfit is giving brooding and dark. Her outfit is a chandelier come to life, but it has a few screws loose. And she said her makeup is a departure from her usual style, it's a little bit more glamorous, but she's enjoying that. Next we had Morphine, who said that her look is a velvet mermaid gown with a faux leather mermaid tail, and she went with pale and ghostly as her makeup style this week, and it's giving Morticia Addams mixed with Elvira and a little bit of Latina goddess. Then we had Plasma, who said that this is goth the way that Plasma would do it. It's very 2000s does 70s with the shag coat, the double belt and the low-waisted pants. And Plasma also said she's wearing Plain Jane's wig from the Cher runway because she didn't have any black wigs with her that didn't look like a 1950s page boy. Next we had Sapphira Crystal, who said this is goth the Sapphira way, and she's giving web sequin fabric, and she's also the only one on the runway who's giving Black Widow, who's got another wedding to go to, so who's next? Then they had Nymphia Wind, who said she's the dark lady of the night who's going to seduce you, and she has a spider nest on her head and a mysterious veil to conceal her gorgeous, stunning face. And finally we had Q, who said that the main show-stopping piece of this outfit is the dress coat, which is made in one piece. And she's going for a Victorian or Edwardian doll silhouette with puff sleeves, bows and ruffle detailing. And for my personal favourite, I think it was between Q and Nymphia. I did love Q's because it was so well made and it had so many intricate details. And I think it really stood out because most of the other outfits were mainly black, whereas Q used more of the white, so it stood out a bit more compared to the others. But I guess as a result, it did look less goth because it had more white than black. Whereas Nymphia's outfit was also great and it was extremely well made, and I do think it probably fit the theme of neo-goth more. So for me it was quite hard to decide between Q and Nymphia, but please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. So moving on to the judges' critiques, and no one was safe this week and everyone received critiques, which is a slight twist. But based on the critiques, the top three were Q, Dawn and Nymphia, with Q ultimately taking the win. And the bottom three were Morphine, Plasma and Mhi'ya. One thing I thought was interesting though, which I did mention earlier, was Michelle said to Mhi'ya that something wasn't adding up because Mhi'ya had previously said that she can't sew, but then she came out in a full outfit with a mermaid bottom. And when Mhi'ya said that Sapphira had given her some help with the outfit, RuPaul even asked what she said to Mhi'ya, and Michelle joked that she asked Sapphira to make the whole outfit for her. And Michelle even pressed Mhi'ya on what exactly Sapphira did compared to what Mhi'ya did, and you could see that the other queens were kind of giving the side eye. And to me, this felt as though the judges must have been told that Sapphira had helped Mhi'ya a lot with the outfit, unless the judges really are that perceptive. Because it just felt very convenient that this topic of Mhi'ya getting help was a big discussion earlier in the episode, and then it just so happened to come up again in the judges' critiques. And they even showed a confessional of Plasma saying that Mhi'ya was kind of lying and that Sapphira had in fact done most of the work, and I thought this was really done clearly just to drive home the story that they wanted to tell. But as I said before, Drag Race is first and foremost a TV show and they need to make it entertaining, so I can see why they did this, and there was also a lot of truth to the situation. So the bottom two get announced as Mhi'ya and Plasma, who lip-synced to the TikTok version of Bloody Mary by Lady Gaga, and Mhi'ya ultimately won the lip-sync and Plasma got eliminated. And this seemed to be a fairly controversial elimination because this was Mhi'ya's third time in the bottom, and Plasma's never been in the bottom and has more wins than Mhi'ya. And so this brings up a topic which I talked about a few weeks ago in a previous Have Your Say video, which is whether track record should count in a lip sync. In my opinion, track record should count if two queens give equally a good performance and the outcome is pretty close. However, in this lip sync, I think Mhi'ya clearly outperformed Plasma. Mhi'ya did a great job in the lip sync, and so I do think it would have been even more controversial if Plasma had won. I do think that Plasma did a decent job in the lip sync though, and I do think she put up a good fight, but Mhi'ya clearly beat her. But let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think track record should count in a lip sync, or is it purely based on the lip sync alone? There was also some criticism by fans of the song choice for the lip sync, which was the TikTok version of Bloody Mary by Lady Gaga. And this song became a viral trend on TikTok last year because of the dance scene from the Netflix show Wednesday, which is sort of based on the Addams Family. And the weird thing is that Bloody Mary wasn't even the song in the TV show Wednesday, it was actually the song Goo Goo Muck by The Cramps, but people on TikTok clipped the dance scene from Wednesday and then put this sped up version of Bloody Mary over the top and it went viral. Anyway, people online thought that this was a weird song choice for the lip sync, and it may have been trendy at the time when they filmed the show last year, but by the time the episode came out this year, the trend has kind of come and gone, so it doesn't really seem that cool anymore. And there were also a few comments about this in the Have Your Say poll comment section, with some people saying that the song for the lip sync was kind of cringe. And we have seen this sort of thing happen on Drag Race before, where they use songs from trends that have come and gone. But let me know in the comments what you think. Should they have used the TikTok version of this song, the normal version of this song, or should they have just chosen a different song altogether? Okay, so let's move on to the results of the Have Your Say poll, where you get to vote on whether you agree with the outcome of the episode. So question 1 was, do you agree with the outcome of this week's episode, i.e. tops, bottoms and elimination? And we had no with 66.3% and yes with 33.7%. So the vast majority of you did not agree with the episode. Question 2 was, in your opinion, who should have won this episode? And with a massive 48.7%, we had Mhi'ya win. And I can see that Mhi'ya did have an amazing outfit and perhaps it did fit the theme of Goth more, so I can kind of understand that. And then we had Q with 27.3%, and then that was followed by Dawn with 18.4%. And I do agree that Q and Dawn probably had the best outfits other than Mhi'ya, so that does make sense. Question 3 was, in your opinion, who should have been eliminated this week? And with 68.4%, we had Mhi'ya Iman LePage, which is actually a massive amount given that Mhi'ya did win the lip sync in the episode. And I think this reflects the fact that people were saying that because Mhi'ya had been in the bottom quite a few times, but Plasma has had 2 wins and has never been in the bottom before, this was quite controversial. Plasma did get 26.3% though in the vote, with Morphine getting 2.2 and weirdly Q got 1.3. But we'll talk about that more in a moment when we get to the comments. Question 4 was, in your opinion, who was the best in the challenge this week? And again, because the challenge was the runway, this is quite similar. We have Mhi'ya with 42.2, Q with 26.7, Dawn with 16.4, Sapphira Crystal with 5.8, and Plain Jane with 1%. Question 5 was, in your opinion, who had the best runway this week? And same as before, the runway was the challenge this week, so it's very similar. We have 54.4% for Mhi'ya Wind, 24.7% for Q, Dawn with 16%, and Sapphira Crystal with 3%. And then finally, question 6 was, in your opinion, who is the frontrunner so far, i.e. most likely to win the season? And unsurprisingly, we have Mhi'ya Win with 45.3%. And this is quite different to last week because Mhi'ya was in the bottom last week. Quite a lot of people said that she should have been eliminated, and her percentage in this particular vote as to whether she'll win the season was a lot less. So it's interesting to see that Mhi'ya is back on top again this week. Next we had Sapphira Crystal with 28.2%, which again does make sense because she also did really well and throughout the season. And then interestingly we had Plain Jane with 17.8% and then Q with 6.1%. And that is interesting because Plain, I think, although she has done very well, she has also been, I guess, somewhat controversial, but also bringing the drama, so that could be why, and she does have several wins. But Q has also been really strong, but she has been in the bottom once, which Plain Jane hasn't, so that could explain it. Okay, so now let's move on to the comments for this week. So obviously one of the big topics was whether Plasma should have stayed over Mhi'ya. And someone said, I thought Plasma brought more talent to the competition overall, but Mhi'ya definitely won that lip sync. And then someone else said, can't believe Plasma got sent home. I get the rules of the lip sync for your life, but come on. And again, this really comes down to the debate of does track record matter, because clearly Plasma had a better track record than Mhi'ya, but Mhi'ya did do a lot better in the lip sync, so it's quite hard to decide. Someone also mentioned that both Mhi'ya and Plasma were quite frantic in the lip sync, and both of them did quite well, but Plasma kept her wig on. And this has been a topic we've talked about before, that sometimes people get quite messy in the lip sync and take off wigs and shoes, and RuPaul normally doesn't like that. But in this particular episode, because Mhi'ya did the petal reveal, I think that was probably cool enough to kind of overlook the fact that she didn't have another wig on. And then someone also made the point that Mhi'ya should have gone home because she did not actually make her own dress, and they also said her lip sync was messy. And this is difficult because I do think Plasma did arguably have the worst outfit, but Mhi'ya didn't make her outfit entirely herself, so I guess you can't really compare the two of them because at least Plasma made her outfit from what we saw. And then there were also a few comments that said that Q shouldn't have won because it didn't really fit the goth theme, which I do maybe sort of agree with, and they said that Nymphia or Dawn should have won instead because that fit the goth aesthetic better. Okay, so now we're going to move on to a little bit of drama that happened this week, which is unrelated to season 16, but I thought it'd be interesting to include in a video. And it involves Elliott with 2 T's calling out her fellow castmates. So, as you may know, Elliott competed on season 13, and after the show came out, Elliott developed a bit of a negative reputation with the fan base because of some alleged comments that she made about her castmates. I have talked about some of this before on my channel, but I'll just give a brief summary to the situation just to put it into context. So back in 2021, in a video with other queens where they were talking about the winner of season 13's Simone, Elliott said, quote, "She is, in a word, black girl magic. That is what she brought. She felt that should be her message, but she did it so elegantly, it wasn't aggressive, it was done with taste." And many people interpreted this word aggressive to be in bad taste because this word is often used to marginalise and discriminate against people of colour. And some other queens tweeted about this at the time, such as season 12 winner Jada Essence Hall, who said, "Word of the day, aggressive. Just wow. I'm glad to know there are some black girls that can be elegant though." Candy Muse, who was also on season 13, also tweeted in response to another queen's tweet, and Candy said she had tried to talk to Elliott on set, and in a subsequent interview with Gay Times, Elliott talked about the situation and explained that what she meant was Simone's drag was larger than life, and that when she said it was not, quote, aggressive, she was referring to Simone's drag and not her as a person. Elliott also said she had received so much hate online because of that incident, and it caused her to lose weight and have difficulties getting out of bed. There was also another part to this story when Gottmik said on the podcast No Gorge with Violet Chachki in 2022 that someone on the set of season 13 had made transphobic comments, but Gottmik didn't say who it was. But then a clip of this video went viral on TikTok at the time, and in the comments, Candy commented and said it was Elliott. Candy also talked more about this during a live video, which I found a copy of on the YouTube channel Drag Race Latino, and I'll put a link to that in the description. And Candy said that the reason she told Elliott in Untucked in that one episode that she needed to be more self-aware is because Elliott had apparently called Candy, quote, ghetto, and she'd also used words like, quote, ratchet. There was also a further development when season 13 contestant Tamisha Iman said during a Twitter live that the people who were calling Elliott transphobic were lying, which is seemingly in reference to what Gottmik had said. And then the YouTube channel OED posted a video about this subject, which I'll post a link to in the description. And Gottmik commented on the video and said, "Not sure why this is being brought up again at this point, but I never said Elliott wasn't nice. She has always been sweet. What we have said is that she said a few words and phrases that made us uncomfortable, some of which we have never even spoken about publicly, and we told her both in person and via phone after the fact. She has literally apologised for saying these things publicly and has been nothing but nice since as well. But coming on here and saying we made any transphobic / racist comments up and making up new stuff that we said isn't called for and is why people don't want to stand up for themselves when there's an actual problem. I would never make something like that up, and I know my sisters that were there would never either." There was also a moment when the season 13 finalists were watching clips of their fellow castmates, and when Elliott came up, no one said anything for a moment and Gottmik closed her mouth, and then Candy just said, quote, rich. So in general, because of these things, Elliott has kind of developed a somewhat negative reputation within the fandom. And that leads on to the recent drama that happened with Elliott when she made a comment about her fellow castmates. So Elliott hadn't posted on Twitter for quite some time, and her last tweet up until recently had been on the 23rd of May 2023 when she said, "Y'all really obsessed with me, #cancelled." She then seemingly came back to Twitter on the 28th of February of this year, and Elliott said people had been fed lies about her. Elliott also posted 2 videos, one of Gottmik and one of Simone, which appear to be from interviews where they both had said nice things about Elliott. Then later on the same day, so the 28th of February, Elliott tweeted some photos of her at the US Capitol and said, "No one else from my season went to the US Capitol to fight for trans rights and stopping the drag bans. Again. Really look at the people y'all are idolising, because they are not good people. Just because they are the loudest in the room doesn't make them right." This tweet then got a lot of attention, with a lot of it being negative, with people asking Elliott why she was being shady towards her castmates, rather than just focusing on the message of being at the Capitol. Elliott then followed this up with several other tweets, where she said that she was sorry if she ever said anything to hurt people, and she would never intentionally want to do that. Elliott also said, "But seriously, y'all gotta stop with the hate and the threats and the harassment, especially when it is coming from a place of lies. Girls from my season spoke a lot of lies about me that have ruined my chances of anything else Drag Race in the future. Isn't that enough?" And the final tweet that Elliott made on the same day was an image that said, "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can show a person the truth, but you can't make them think." And that was the last tweet that Elliott has made on her account. And this obviously caused a lot of online discussion about Elliott, with some people criticising her for this tweet, and this also brought up the issue of the past allegations against Elliott that I mentioned earlier. But there were also people defending Elliott and said that she made a good point about being the only one who was going to the Capitol, and the other queens were just saying it online but were not taking any real world action. But in general, as I always say, please do not send hate to anyone, and it's really not okay to send hateful comments and messages to people. Remember that we're all real people and we have real feelings, so please remember to act responsibly and just enjoy this video passively, and that includes in the comments on this video and any other comments you make online. So there you go, there was the Have Your Say video for Drag Race Season 16 Episode 9. Let me know in the comments who you think will be the top 2 of the season, and who do you think will ultimately take the crown. And I'd also like to give a huge shout out to all of my incredible Patreon members who support me every month and are just such an incredible community of love and support. In the Shantae You Stay tier we have Anna, Becky, Charlie, David, Emmy, Linda and Shelby. And then in the You're a Winner Baby tier we have Bailey, Christian, Emerald1508, Ethan, Kat, Lisa, PC Smush, Rachel, Rochelle and Sam. Thank you all so much for your incredible support, you're all legends. Your support is really such a massive help to my channel and really keeps it going, so thank you all so much, I really appreciate you all. And if you'd like to have your comment featured in my Have Your Say videos, as well as get early access to my videos and priority when submitting interview questions, please consider signing up to my Patreon and supporting my channel, and I'll put a link in the description. Please make sure you like, comment and share this video, as it really helps support my channel. And of course, please make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date about new uploads. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!